Have you ever wondered what it's like to have a billionaire mom who believes she owns your entire future? Trust me, it's far from the dream most people picture. My mom, Patricia Langford, built one of the most powerful tech empires on the West Coast. She commands boardrooms in Los Angeles the way generals command armies. Every deal, every headline, every connection bends to her will. From the day I was born, she mapped out my life, the elite schools, the internships at her companies, the circle of friends who mattered, and especially the husband who would strengthen her empire. When I turned 16, she sat me down and said flatly, "Love is a luxury for people without leverage. You're a Langford. You marry to win." 6 months ago, I shattered that rule completely. I fell in love with a man she dismissed as a nobody, a quiet driver from the valley who showed up with grease under his nails and zero interest in status. At my own wedding under the open sky at a small Malibu garden with 200 guests, watching my mother rose during the toast, champagne glass raised like a blade, and delivered her verdict in front of everyone. No inheritance, no trust fund. You're cut off, Sarah. You chose poverty over family, now live with the consequences. The air went still. Phones lifted silently. Whispers raced through the crowd like fire. She smiled the same way she closes billion-dollar deals, absolute, unshakable, convinced she'd just taught me the final lesson. What she never expected, what no one in that garden expected, was that the man she had just publicly humiliated was about to become her single greatest regret. Matthew simply met her gaze, calm and steady, and answered in a voice everyone heard, "We don't need it." 3 months later, my parents sat frozen in their seats at a major tech conference in Beverly Hills when they finally saw where Matthew really worked and who he truly was. The moment the truth landed, their faces told the whole story. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah, 28 years old. If you're watching, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what comes next. This story still shocks me every time I tell it. And if you've ever felt your family trying to control who you love, drop a quick note in the comments. I read every single one, and knowing I'm not alone makes all the difference. Now let's dive in. 8 months ago, on a Tuesday afternoon in Los Angeles, I slipped away from another endless board meeting at my mother's headquarters and found myself at a quiet beach park near Santa Monica. I needed airspace, anything to quiet the voice in my head that always sounded like her. I sat on a weathered bench watching the waves when Matthew walked up carrying a single coffee and asked if the seat was taken. He was tall, relaxed, with steady brown eyes and hands that clearly spent time working hard. We started talking without any agenda. He asked about my day, really listened when I said it had been rough, and shared that he drove for a living but enjoyed fixing things on the side. I told him my name was Sarah, and stopped there. For once, no one probed for my family name or connections. He just smiled and said, "I like talking to someone who actually answers honestly." We stayed until the light faded, and when we parted, he added, "Let's do this again sometime, no pressure." That simple line stayed with me longer than it should have. The next 6 months unfolded in stolen moments that felt like breathing for the first time in years. We met whenever I could carve out time-long walks along the shore, at dusk, small diners in the valley where the food was good and no one cared about status drives with the windows down and music low. Matthew always paid cash from a thick, worn wallet, refused anything too fancy, and never once asked about my world back home. He wanted to know what made me laugh, what I dreamed about when no one was watching. I opened up about the pressure I carried without naming it fully, and he never pushed for details. He just listened, nodded, and made me feel seen in a way no one else ever had. Those evenings became the only part of my life that felt real. Then the night came when I knew I couldn't keep it hidden anymore. Dinner at the Hollywood Hills house. Long polished table crystal. Catching the chandelier light, my father Thomas at one end, quietly eating as always, while my mother Patricia held court at the head. She was already discussing a merger that would dominate headlines when I set my fork down and said, "Mom, There's someone I need you to meet. His name is Matthew Hayes. We've been together 6 months. Silence dropped like a weight. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Hayes? What family? I answered honestly. You don't know him. He's not from our world. Her voice cut sharp. 6 months, and I haven't been informed. In this family, marriage is strategy. Sarah, not some romantic impulse. My father cleared his throat but stayed silent. Patricia leaned in. Who is this man who thinks he can bypass me entirely? 3 days later, she called me to her downtown office. A thin folder waited on the desk. She flipped it open and read aloud. Matthew Hayes, 32, private driver, 1 bedroom in the valley, no significant assets, no notable connections. She closed it with a snap and looked at me like I had failed a test I didn't know I was taking. This is your choice, eh? Nobody from nowhere. I told her. He was kind, honest, asked for nothing. She gave a short, bitter laugh. Kindness doesn't build empires. Everyone has an angle. The question is when it shows. She pushed the folder toward me. End it before you drag the Langford name through the mud. I left the folder untouched and walked out, heart pounding. That night, the old memory surfaced uninvited me at 12 in her study, report card in hand. She scanned it, frowned, and said, Adequate. But adequate will never be enough for a Langford. You will marry someone who adds real value. Those words had felt like law back then. Now they felt like chains I was finally breaking. A few evenings later, while we walked the beach path, Matthew said casually, I tinker with tech projects in my spare time. It keeps me grounded. I smiled, thinking it was just a hobby, nothing more. I had no idea how wrong I was. Matthew proposed on a Sunday morning in our small Santa Monica apartment. He woke up early to make pancakes, the way I liked them. Slightly crispy edges, extra syrup on the side, and placed a small velvet box next to my plate while I was still rubbing sleep from my eyes. He opened it slowly, revealing a single diamond on a slim gold band that caught the sunlight streaming through the window. No grand speech, just his steady voice saying, I know I'm not the match your family would choose. I can't offer you the world you grew up in. But I can give you this. I'll never control you, never make you feel less, and I'll fight every day to keep that smile on your face. My chest tightened with something I hadn't felt in years, pure, uncomplicated certainty. I said yes before the word even finished forming, pulling him close as tears blurred everything else. In that moment, the apartment felt bigger than any penthouse I'd ever known. I called my mother that afternoon, needing her to hear it from me first. The line connected after 2 rings. Mom, Matthew proposed. We're getting married in 2 months. The pause was so long I checked if the call had dropped. Then her voice came through, sharp and measured. Sarah, you're destroying everything we've built. Do you understand what this means for our reputation? I tried to explain that he made me happy, that love wasn't a transaction. She interrupted. Love doesn't fund lifestyles or secure alliances. Your father and I didn't climb this high so you could throw it away on impulse. I heard my father in the background exhale heavily, but he stayed silent as always. Patricia ended with, Think carefully. This isn't just about you. The call disconnected, leaving a hollow ring in my ears. 2 days later, I headed to a boutique mall in Beverly Hills for wedding dresses. I'd chosen something timeless, nothing over the top. The consultant smiled at first, then her expression shifted after tapping into the system. Miss Langford, there's a problem with your payment. I handed over the backup card, then the emergency one my mother had set up years ago. All rejected. In the fitting room, I called the bank, voice shaking. The agent confirmed politely, Your authorized user privileges were revoked yesterday by the primary account holder. Primary account holder, Patricia. I sank to the floor amid racks of silk, staring at my phone as the reality settled in. She hadn't waited for discussion. She'd already started cutting me off. Matthew arrived an hour later after my text. I was still sitting there when he walked in, and without hesitation pulled out a thick stack of cash, secured by a rubber band, several $1,000s at least. Let me take care of this, he said quietly. Pride flared up. I started to refuse, but he held my gaze. I want to. I looked at the money so casual in his hand, and a small question flickered. How did someone in his line of work carry that much without blinking? But the sting of my mother's move was too raw to push further. I let him pay, and for the first time I saw what life without her safety net really looked like. That evening, the texts began arriving from people I'd known since childhood. One by one, "Sorry, babe, my parents said we can't hang right now. This is tough, but Dad's in talks with Langford Tech. Wishing you the best, though." Friendships built over decades vanished in minutes, each message a reminder that loyalty came with conditions I no longer satisfied. Nicole was different, she called instead of texting. Her voice was steady. "Sarah, this is her trying to force you back. Don't let her win." I told her I wouldn't. She answered softly. "Good. This is your chance to break free from her control. You've got more strength than she ever gave you credit for. I'm right here." Her words landed like an anchor in the storm, the first real support that didn't come with strings. The social fallout hit within a week after the cards were cut. Walking into Langford Tech felt like stepping into a room where everyone had already decided I no longer belonged. Colleagues who used to stop by my desk for advice now avoided eye contact or offered tight smiles before hurrying away. The whispers started in the break room and followed me down hallways. "Disowned princess, cut off for some driver. How long before she begs to come back?" My corner office was quietly reassigned for team realignment, and on Friday afternoon, an HR email landed in my inbox. "Your role is under evaluation. Client interactions are paused until further notice." They didn't terminate me. They simply made my presence irrelevant, a silent message from my mother that I was no longer an asset worth protecting. That same week, a voicemail appeared from Karen Wong, the attorney who managed my grandmother Helen's estate before she passed. Her tone was professional and calm. "Sarah, there's an important matter concerning Helen's trust that needs your attention. Please reach out at your convenience." I saved the message but didn't call back. The weight of everything else, rejections, silence from old friends, the constant pressure made it hard to focus on anything that felt like another family obligation. I was too deep in survival mode to see it as help. We moved into the new Santa Monica apartment shortly after. A simple 2-bedroom with worn hardwood floors and a small balcony facing a community garden. No concierge, no skyline view, just quiet and space that belonged to us. Matthew carried in the last box and watched me walk through the empty rooms. "It's basic," he said, "but it's ours." I stood on the balcony that first evening, ocean breeze hitting my face, and felt a strange mixed relief that my mother's reach stopped at the front door, but also the sharp pressure of starting from zero. No safety net meant every bill, every decision landed squarely on my shoulders. For the first time, I understood how much I'd leaned on her money to feel secure. Resumes went out daily to every marketing firm I could find in LA, mid-level roles, junior positions, even freelance gigs. Every response was the same polite decline, no interview or complete silence. The network that once opened doors now slammed them shut. No one wanted to risk crossing Patricia Langford. I insisted on covering half our expenses with what remained in my personal account. Pride wouldn't let me lean fully on Matthew. He respected that, never pushing, just saying quietly, "I get it. Do what you need to do." One night I woke at 3 a.m. to an empty bed. Through the half-open door I saw Matthew in the living room, phone pressed to his ear, voice low but firm. "Projections need recalibrating before the board review." "No, don't escalate to finance, I'll handle the technical audit myself." He noticed me standing there and ended the call quickly. "Late work thing," he said with a small smile. "Get some rest." I went back to bed, but sleep didn't come. Drivers didn't talk about board reviews or technical audits. The words lingered sharp and out of place, planting the first real seed of doubt. Nicole showed up the next afternoon with coffee and her laptop. She sat at our kitchen table, opened my resume, and started cutting anything that tied me too closely to Langford Tech. While we revised bullet points, she told me her own story, how her parents once froze her startup funding unless she dated their approved candidate. "I walked away," she said. It was terrifying, but it was mine. You're doing the same thing now. Her words cut through the fog of rejection emails piling up in my inbox. Another decline pinged in as we worked, but for the first time I didn't feel completely alone in the fight. 1 week before the wedding, Patricia showed up unannounced at our Santa Monica apartment. She stood in the doorway in her crisp designer suit, scanning the modest living room with obvious disdain before stepping inside without invitation. No hello, no pleasantries. She closed the door and said immediately, "I'm here to make you an offer, Sarah." Matthew stood beside me, posture relaxed but alert, hands loose at his sides. Patricia pulled out her checkbook with the same efficiency she used in boardrooms. $5 million. Cancel everything. Come home. We'll act like this never happened. I stared at the blank check enough to buy freedom most people never see. She didn't pause. 10 million. That's the ceiling. My heart slammed against my ribs, but the answer came out clear. I'm not for sale, Mom. Her expression hardened into something cold and final. Then you're choosing poverty over legacy. When this collapses, and it will, don't expect me to pick up the pieces. You'll have zero, no name, no resources, no protection. She leaned closer, voice dropping to a hiss. You'll be nothing just like him. She flicked her gaze toward Matthew with pure contempt. He didn't react, just spoke quietly, "Mrs. Langford, I think it's time for you to leave." She laughed once, sharp and dismissive. "The driver has an opinion. Enjoy the fantasy while it lasts. When she wakes up to what she's sacrificed, she'll resent you for every second of it." Matthew held her stare without anger. "I don't believe she will." A flicker of unease crossed her face, brief, almost invisible, before she turned on her heel and walked out the door, shutting with a final click. The wedding was meant to be intimate, Malibu garden, 50 guests, simple vows under the late afternoon sun. We arrived to find the space overrun, 200 extra chairs filled with elite faces from LA society photographers already positioned, everyone watching. Patricia had transformed our day into her spectacle. She sat front row, dabbing her eyes theatrically. My father stood nearby, silent and stiff. When the toast came, she rose, glass raised, high voice projecting over the crowd. "To my daughter and her decision. I built an empire from nothing, every dollar earned through discipline, every alliance forged with purpose. I expected her to marry someone who understood value. Instead, she chose this, a driver with empty pockets and empty promises." Gasps spread like ripples. Phones rose to capture every word. She continued, eyes fixed on me. "You'll crawl back broke when reality hits. Until then, enjoy your little rebellion." She sipped, sat down, certain she'd delivered the killing blow. The silence that followed pressed in heavy. Matthew's hand stayed steady in mine. I stood up slowly, facing the sea of expectant faces, waiting for tears or collapse. My mother believes money measures worth. She thinks family is a contract, love is leverage, and people are either useful or expendable. I spent 28 years trying to prove I was useful. Perfect scores, perfect internships, perfect composure. I was never enough. Today I choose something else. I choose to be loved for who I am, not what I contribute to a portfolio. I looked straight at Patricia, who refused to meet my eyes, at my father standing rigid at the crowd, weighing my worth in real time. If you came to watch me break, I'm sorry to disappoint. This is a celebration. If you want to leave, the path is open. If you want to stay and actually celebrate with us, thank you. Roughly 30 people stood and walked out. The rest, nearly 200, stayed, some clapping, others nodding quietly. Patricia hadn't anticipated that. Standing there in front of everyone, I realized how much I'd been holding back for years. Sometimes you don't know how strong you are until someone tries to break you in public. Looking back, that moment changed everything for me. Nicole, seated near the aisle, had her phone angled discreetly the entire time, quietly recording the toast without drawing attention. Matthew remained beside me, calm as stone, but when our eyes met, I caught a fleeting shadow in his expression, like someone who had weathered far darker storms than this one. The honeymoon period lasted about 6 weeks. Not the closeness. Matthew and I were building something solid in our Santa Monica apartment, learning to share space without the weight of expectations. What faded was any illusion that finding work would be easy. I applied to 43 marketing positions across LA, mid-level roles, junior spots, freelance contracts, anything that fit my degree and experience. Every response was rejection or silence. The network that once welcomed me now treated me like a risk. No one wanted to hire the daughter Patricia had publicly disowned. I sat at our kitchen table staring at the inbox full of polite declines and felt the doubt grow sharper. What if my mother had been right all along about me not surviving outside her shadow? One afternoon, my phone rang with her name on the screen. I answered before I could talk myself out of it. "Sarah, darling." Patricia said, her voice smooth and practiced. "We've been so concerned. How are you managing?" I stayed quiet. She pressed on. "Your father and I believe you've proven your point. Independence is admirable, but that man can't provide the life you were raised for. The will isn't locked yet. There's still time to reconsider." I asked what she meant. "The marriage, obviously. Come home, choose someone appropriate, and we can move past this." I thought about Matthew, remembering exactly how I took my coffee staying up with me, through rejection emails, holding space when I had none left. "I think he already provides what I need," I said. She sighed the way she did when negotiations weren't going her way. "You're breaking my heart, Sarah. Every day you stay with him is another day you're wasting your potential." That evening, Brian's Instagram post appeared, a glossy shot of him at a rooftop bar with my old friend's champagne flutes raised, city lights glittering behind them. Caption: "Some people trade luxury for love. Hope the view from the bottom is worth it. Hashtag poverty is romantic." The comments exploded, laughing emojis, old inside jokes, people tagging each other with, "Remember when she used to show up in the jet?" Patricia had liked it within minutes. I stared at the screen until the words blurred, the mockery cutting deeper than any voicemail. I stepped onto the balcony that night, wrapped in a blanket, watching the city glow, while silent tears tracked down my face. Matthew found me there, sat close without crowding, and waited until I could speak. When I finally looked up, he said softly, "Tell me what you need right now." I whispered that I didn't know anymore. He took my hand. "In 3 months, everything changes. Trust me on that." I asked what he meant. He kissed my forehead. "I've faced worse betrayals than this. You'll understand soon." His words carried a quiet weight, another layer of mystery I was too tired to unravel. The next morning, I called Karen Wong back. Her office downtown was calm, and understated leather chairs and shelves of law books. She greeted me with genuine warmth. "Sarah, thank you for coming. Helen would be so proud of you." She opened a folder and explained, before she passed my grandmother, Helen had created a separate trust outside Patricia's control. Helen's instruction was clear: release it only after I married someone of my own choice without my mother's approval. The amount was $500,000 in diversified assets, effective the day I said yes to Matthew. Tucked inside was a letter in Helen's familiar script. "My darling Sarah, if you're reading this, you've chosen your own path. We started with nothing and ended with everything because we had each other. This isn't a fortune, but it's freedom. Use it to build the life you want. Never let anyone define your worth. All my love, Grandma Helen." I cried in that office for 20 minutes, tears that carried grief for the grandmother I'd lost, relief for the gift she'd left, and hope that maybe I could stand on my own. For the first time in months, the future felt possible instead of punishing. Nicole dropped by later that afternoon. She hugged me hard and said, "This is your turning point, Sarah. Helen gave you the key, now lock the door behind you and don't look back. You're free to build everything on your terms." 5 months after the wedding, I launched my agency in Pasadena with the $500,000 from Grandma Helen's trust. I rented a compact co-working space near Old Town, sketched a clean logo on my laptop, and cold emailed every small business owner I'd crossed paths with who wasn't connected to my mother's world. The first client was the coffee shop near the beach park where Matthew and I first met. They wanted social media strategy and branding help. I charged half my former rate to build proof of concept. Referrals came steadily after that, A vintage bookstore in the village needed online presence. A family-owned restaurant in the valley asked for menu photography campaigns. A Glendale tech startup wanted launch messaging. Within 2 months, I was juggling more projects than I could manage solo. The work wasn't flashy, but it paid bills, built confidence, and proved I could create value without a famous last name attached. One morning, an email arrived from Horizon AI Technologies. Subject Partnership Discussion. The body read, "Your approach with emerging brands aligns with our values. We'd like to explore collaboration opportunities." I'd never heard of Horizon AI, but a quick search revealed a private powerhouse, fast-growing, innovative, valued in the billions, notoriously low-profile leadership. The timing felt impossible. I stared at the sender address, suspicion rising like heat. That evening, Matthew sat me down at our kitchen table, expression more serious than I'd seen in months. "Before the conference next month, you need to know something," he said. "Horizon AI isn't random. I'm the founder and CEO." My breath caught. He kept going. "I started it years ago from nothing. The driver job is real. I still take shifts to stay connected to regular life. But everything else, the late calls, the cash, the technical terms you overheard, I kept it hidden because I had to be sure someone could love me without knowing the money, the title, the power. I needed to know it was real with you." I felt the pieces snap together, the thick wallet, the board meeting whispers, the casual mention of tech projects. "Why tell me now?" I asked. He took both my hands. "Because the Beverly Hills conference is my first public appearance as CEO. I want you standing beside me when the truth breaks." The conference ballroom in Beverly Hills was filled with 500 industry heavyweights, tech founders, investors, media, under glittering chandeliers. I walked in on Matthew's arm, every step drawing eyes. My parents were already there working the room with practiced charm. Patricia saw me first, her face flashing surprise, then calculation. She approached, voice low. "Sarah, this is interesting. We should discuss the future." Before I could reply, the lights dimmed. The MC took the stage. "Tonight marks a historic moment, the first public address from the founder and CEO of Horizon AI Technologies." The massive screen flashed the logo, then Matthew's name and face. Applause exploded as he walked up calm and commanding. My parents froze in their seats. Patricia's glass halted midair. Thomas's jaw slackened, color draining from his face. Matthew spoke for 20 minutes, clear, passionate, magnetic, detailing innovations that had reshaped industries. The audience hung on every word. When he finished, the ovation was deafening. He stepped down and walked directly to where they sat. "Mr. and Mrs. Langford," he said evenly, "I believe you wanted to discuss partnership." Patricia recovered fastest, forcing a smile. "Matthew, we had no idea. This changes everything. The data center deal. Let's talk terms." Matthew's tone stayed even but firm. "The deal is off. Horizon AI doesn't partner with people who treat family like assets to be traded or discarded." He raised his voice just enough for nearby attendees to hear. "Your daughter chose love over control. You punished her publicly. I don't reward that behavior." Patricia pushed forward, voice rising. "We can negotiate. Think of the billions at stake." Matthew didn't look back. Thomas started. "We can." But Matthew walked away with me, arm around my waist, leaving them standing amid the growing whispers and recording phones. The fallout was immediate and brutal. By midnight, Nicole's discreet recording of Patricia's wedding toast had spread across every platform, clips looped endlessly, context added in captions. The powerful CEO, who publicly disowned her daughter for marrying a nobody, had just discovered that nobody was the billionaire founder of Horizon AI. Headlines exploded overnight. Tech CEO, humiliated by billionaire son-in-law she mocked at wedding. From toast to toast out, Patricia Langford's $50 million blunder. The wedding that cost a tech titan everything. Social media lit up memes of Patricia's frozen face at the conference side by side, with her champagne glass mid-air comments flooding in with laughing emojis, and karma delivered. The story dominated business feeds for days, turning her name into a cautionary tale. Within 48 hours, the damage accelerated. Two key partners quietly withdrew from ongoing contracts, citing reputational concerns. The massive data center deal she'd pursued for years evaporated. Horizon AI publicly awarded it to a rival. Board members at Langford Tech, already rattled by the viral humiliation, convened an emergency session. Shareholders demanded action. The vote was unanimous and swift. Patricia was removed as CEO, ousted by the very people who'd once bowed to her authority. The official statement mentioned strategic realignment, but the industry knew the truth. Public embarrassment had eroded trust beyond repair. Brian's cushy executive role vanished too. Doors that once opened for the Langford name now stayed firmly shut. 3 days after the conference, Brian appeared at our apartment, ringing the bell like a stranger. He stood awkwardly in the living room. "Sarah, I owe you an apology. The Instagram post. The comments, it was cruel and stupid. I was wrong." Matthew leaned against the wall, watching silently. Brian glanced at him. "We're family now. Imagine what Langford Tech and Horizon could do together, real synergies." I studied him for a long beat. "You mocked me when I was down. You liked Patricia's post celebrating my fall. This isn't remorse, it's damage control." He opened his mouth to argue. I walked to the door and opened it. "Leave. We're not family. We're just people who once shared a last name." He left without another word. Patricia called the next morning, then showed up alone that evening. No entourage, no armor, just a woman in rumpled clothes with red-rimmed eyes. She stood in the doorway. "Sarah, everything's gone. The board voted me out. Partners left. I need to talk." I let her in. She looked around the modest space and for once said nothing critical. "I was wrong," she said quietly. "About Matthew, about you, about what really matters." I handed her the printout. Karen had provided an email she'd sent Patricia 2 days before my wedding. "Let her struggle a few months without funds. She'll come crawling back and marry who you choose." Patricia's hands trembled as she read. "That was out of context," she whispered. I shook my head. "No, you helped orchestrate my punishment. You watched me humiliated and stayed silent. Actions reveal who you are, not apologies after the damage is done." She started crying. "Please, Sarah, let me make this right." I met her eyes. "You already made your choice. I believe you now. Goodbye." I closed the door softly. 1 year later, my agency had 15 employees and a steady roster of clients who valued results over pedigree. Matthew still drove on weekends to stay grounded, and I sometimes joined him, passing tools and learning the rhythm of engines. We celebrated quietly at his mother's house in the hills, no extravagance, just genuine laughter. Looking back, I wonder how many of us stay trapped in toxic dynamics simply because it's family. If this resonates with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Thank you all for taking the time to watch the video. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos.